Okay, welcome back everyone. Let's get right into the stock market technical analysis. It's been a couple days since I put a video out. There hasn't been a whole lot of change and I've been pretty busy, but today I want to point out a couple interesting things happening that I think are relevant for the near future. So I'm going to start off today with triple Qs, and then we will look at the FANG stocks. We'll look at gold miners specifically, I think are kind of interesting. Wheat, we'll look at wheat, and then anything else that kind of pops up. So triple Qs today gapping up on the CPI report that was lighter than expected. The main takeaway that I have really from the daily chart here on triple Qs is the fact that we are making a divergent high right there. That's a new high on the daily, but it's less momentum. So negative divergence on the daily chart exists on triple Qs. If I go down to the hourly on this one, you can see that right there, there's your former high right there, and we popped up and made a slightly new high, and it's getting sold into so far. You can see that's the divergent high, and there were the sellers. There's a counter, there's another rally, so it looks like the sellers are stepping in into the end of the day as well. So what this sets us up, if I roll out, this would really set us up for a move down to the major trend line. All right, we're still in an uptrend. Triple Qs is still in an uptrend, but the trend line is down here. You can see support. There's support there. Support. All right, and a pullback would be down to that trend line there. So that would be a pullback from where we're at now. It depends on when you get there, of course, but maybe 3 to 4%. Depending on how much you get there or how quickly you get to that trend line. Okay, so that's what I see on the hourly. Back to the daily on triple Qs. Again, the former reaction high, all right, on this daily, I have to kind of zoom in. All right, it was really right about here, about 371.78. And if I zoom out, we kind of go to the daily chart. You can see that once I clean this up, you can see basically we are still we're above it just slightly right now, but just barely. So we'll see how the day closes. Maybe it'll close just, barely over that former resistance level or below it. A breakout would be something impulsive, not, you don't want to see just barely closing above the resistance level. You definitely want to see an impulsive close above it. Okay, so that's the triple Qs. We can look at the NASDAQ futures just to get a read on those. So on the futures, a couple trend lines to watch. On the hourly, I've got this kind of shorter term trend line that it's just kind of walking up right here. And then on the daily, which is more consistent with the triple Qs trend line, really the uptrend that the tech sector's been in all year, down here. So you can see support, support, support. This has lots of reactions. So a pullback would be a pullback right now to that trend line. I don't know when it hits it, but a pullback to that would be support. We did also just briefly spike up here and make a divergent high on the momentum. So less and less momentum on this high, and it's a divergent high. No real sell signals yet, at least across the broad sector. Let's look at the FANG stocks. The biggest one is Apple, which I think is relevant. Now, we're not seeing a complete rejection, but here's the bigger picture. You've got a bearish rising wedge. All right, you broke a little bit to the upside. Those are usually stop raid moves right there. That was faded. Now we've broken down. All right, so that's a sell signal. This breakdown right here is a sell signal, and then today it looks like they rallied it up for a back test, and it's so far still back below. So these three candles right there are still below the bearish rising wedge, and it's acting as resistance from above. So it is a sell signal. We'll look for more selling. Ultimately, you need to see some more selling. Take out the lows would probably help. But you want to see a clear rejection, a nice red candle from up here showing that the sellers are starting to step in on Apple. And again, if Apple's selling off, it has such a heavy weighting in the tech sector, and oftentimes they all kind of trade together. You're going to see the rest of those sell off. So nothing impulsive yet. We'll keep an eye on that. And then just kind of glancing through a lot of these. Here's Amazon. Amazon's basically gone nowhere for, pretty much sideways for, you know, almost a month now, at least 3 weeks, sideways right there. So we'll just continue to watch for more impulsive selling. And Google, again, Google topped out back here on early June, and ultimately has actually been downtrending since early June. All right, so the price action here is down. The sellers have stepped in on that one. Meta's kind of continuing to ramp up. It is still within this bearish rising wedge here. We had a little breakdown. It wasn't super impulsive. They kept back testing it. Today they're gapping it up. This looks like it's right at resistance. So again, just, you know, we continue to just trade within this wedge pattern. It hasn't really broken out of here. So we'll see how this plays out. Whether, you know, because again, on the daily chart, it was resistance here, resistance here, resistance there. And we're pretty much right at it right there. So we'll look for the sellers to recognize that and step in. And Microsoft topped out. You know, basically just the former high in Microsoft was right back here. It was at about 349.06. We made a brief pop above it intraday. All right, they popped above that former high, and the seller stepped in, and it's really been just kind of sideways to down since that former high. So until you take out those highs and break out with a big green candle, that's resistance in the near term on Microsoft. Nvidia, nothing really broken with Nvidia. It is continuing to diverge on the daily chart. There's your divergence, but no sell signal. All right, there's the former kind of top of the trend line up here is now acting as support, and it continues to kind of just diverge higher while holding that trend line there. So until you break trend, there's really nothing wrong here with Nvidia, although the divergence is forecasting that's going to come relatively soon, but we don't exactly know, so we have to wait for it. Okay, gold. So I'm flipping over to these. GDX is really the big one. So GDX, I talked about in the past how we have an uptrend line to watch, and it really started back in September. This didn't quite hit the support, but we had a reaction here, and then recently they kind of dipped below right here. And what I said is look for a recovery, a pretty solid recovery back above, and there it is right there. A gap up and nothing but buying. And so that's what I was looking for on GDX. But the other thing I was also looking for, I didn't see a lot of bullish setups previously in the other gold miners, and they're all showing up kind of today, and they've been building for a little while. Here's one, HMY, downtrend line. No real bullish divergence there on the daily. If I go to the hourly chart, you can see, you know, slight bullish divergence right there on the hourly, but clear breakout on that one. AG, this one was a setup a while ago. We talked about this one. You had a bullish falling wedge, you had bullish divergence, and you had a buy signal, which really came right down here. It came basically pretty solid buy signal back on June 30th, and you know, off to the races she goes, up 9% today. So that's looking good. And then as I kind of scan around and look at a lot of these different gold miners, a lot of them do have relatively bullish setups. Here's WPM. Here's a downward trend line. Not my favorite trend line because I kind of only have a couple data points, 1, 2, but then clear breakout there. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. Okay, oil. So this is oil futures, and you can see here we have a downtrend line. This is a daily chart coming off the early June, basically 2022 highs. Had a reaction there. And you can see today, that's a breakout right there. Now, the 200 days moving average is just overhead. This might need to consolidate for a little bit, but ultimately it does look like a breakout. And it looks like the oil futures at least are about to start to run. So keep an eye on those. Here's XLE, this is oil ETF. On the daily chart, you have a downtrend, resistance, couple reactions, not as many as I would like to see, but ultimately this is the best I can do on the trend line. And then a breakout yesterday. This also did have some bullish divergence really showing up, really about there. Bullish momentum while we were making lower lows. Those are divergent lows here. And ultimately we have a break of a downtrend line. So it's a buy signal. It's at the 200, so I could see a pullback, and maybe some consolidation, but does look like it's starting to break out. Okay, commodities, especially wheat. The grains are all down today. Wheat, soybeans, corn, they're all being sold, but the rest of the commodities are rallying, and that's just kind of how commodities go. The grains typically trade together. Wheat's still back testing. All right, my trend line could be just off slightly. Here's the all-time highs. I could adjust it just slightly, but ultimately you can see it's just kind of right in the range. And usually when you have a trend line, they'll kind of undercut it a little bit, run some stops. This is a back test of the trend line. So you had a bullish falling wedge, big bullish divergence on the momentum. You had a clear breakout here. All right, multiple days of really strong buying, and now you're getting a back test. So this is objective. It's an objective long area. Now, I don't want to just buy it, down here. I mean, obviously, I'd like to see it impulsively start to lift off of this trend line. So keep an eye out for that. If it continues to break down, then maybe we have a false breakout. And if that's the case, then yeah, it could continue to drop. But we'll see. I mean, if the dollar is going to continue to sell off, and let me flip over to the dollar here. Haven't looked at that one. That's a pretty good size move down in the dollar, down 1%. Pretty strong selling. I've got former support right in here. And you can see that we are taking that out today with a sell signal on the dollar. So if the dollar is going to continue to drop, obviously that can continue to be bullish for stocks, and then especially bullish for gold and for commodities. So keep an eye on the dollar. Interest rates, TNX. This is the 10-year Treasury yield interest rates basically, and pretty much what a lot of different things are based off of, mortgage rates and credit cards and things like that. So we have a downtrend line. All right, interest rates have been falling pretty much since about late 2022. Interest rates have been dropping, but ultimately you can see we had a breakout the other day. That's a breakout right there, breakout, and now we're back testing. So we might consolidate for a little bit, but interest rates still, to me, look like they are in a longer term uptrend. This is your COVID lows right here on interest rates, and we're still trending higher. So if interest rates are going to continue to rise, then that should be bearish for especially tech stocks. So a little bit of conflicting, we'll see. Either the dollar or the interest rates, one of them is likely doing a fake out move. So if the dollar is going to rally and kind of have a false breakdown and interest rates rise, then you should see the market start to sell off. A couple long trade ideas. CVS continues to look, decent. It's still bottoming. Looks like it's kind of basing out. You have a downtrend line, bullish divergence, had a breakout right there. That's pretty much breakout. Gap down, back test. Buyer stepped in again, and we're just back to resistance. Right now, resistance seems to be about 71.23. So we'll see how that plays out. You need to break out above that for the next buy signal, but still looks like a bottoming pattern, and it looks like it wants to continue to rally. So that one looks decent. And then this one's kind of decent. Zoom. You've got a downtrend line. It's really a bullish falling wedge pattern. If I mark that out, it's really kind of looks like about there. You have a downward wedge, bullish falling wedge, bullish divergence on the momentum indicators. You had a breakout. That was a breakout, but it was faded. It was kind of a false breakout. You've got some consolidation. It's pretty choppy. There's also resistance right there about 71.40 and the 200-day moving average. So you take that out, that's likely going to be an impulsive rally and a pretty strong buy signal if you see that. So keep an eye on that one. This one I've kind of talked about. DraftKings gapping up today. It's gapping into resistance. If I roll out on the daily chart, you can see there's some former resistance right back here. Several reactions right through there. A little bit of the consolidation right there, not much. Gapping and so far being sold into at that resistance point. This to me looks like a stop clearing move. You've got a bearish rising wedge. You've got negative divergence. You're gapping up into resistance. To me, it looks like a stop clearing move. So we'll see. I'd expect to see some strong selling relatively soon. But if it doesn't show up, and then you just stop out, and the trade's not, you're not going to get the selling. So likely need to see, we likely need to see the Apple and the triple Qs start to roll over before some of these things start to roll over. And that is all I've got. So I'm going to wrap up, get the video out, drop me a thumbs up on your way out, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.